Welcome to some amazing discussions from the voices of young America. Welcome to Women Investing in Women and Girls. In the next hour, you'll hear from leading women in academics, business, entertainment, and more. Now, here are your hosts.
Welcome to Women Investing in Women and Girls. I'm your host, Michelle Jaffee, and we are so glad to be joined by our guest today, whose work is bringing to light different international conflicts and providing solutions as well. We are also joined today by Bhardwaj of Women Investing in Women. So we'd like to welcome our guest on the show again, Melissa. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm deeply appreciative.
It's such a pleasure. And just to kickstart the discussion, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Where would you like me to start?
Wherever you'd feel like.
All right. Well, I'm a native New Yorker, still on my island, and happily so. I went to high school here in New York at the Hewitt School for Girls, and then I went on to do an undergraduate degree at GW University. I worked in politics for a little bit. I worked for the DNC before I switched over to the RNC. And then I came back to New York, where I did another degree also in the same thing, International Relations and Global Affairs, at New York University. I went then to do a second master's degree at Rutgers University. I went on to do a PhD, which I'm just about done with now. I spent the past 2 years teaching political science and national security at Rutgers University before transitioning full-time into my role now as a philanthropic advisor and consultant.
We love it. It's very, very impressive background in education.
Thank you.
And I'd like to touch on your experience in international relations and global affairs to get your opinion on some of the issues that are going on right now, especially between the fighting that's going on abroad between countries. So I would just like to know your opinion on that situation and where you see America in that situation as well.
I'm sorry, what was the situation again?
Between countries. So, for instance, definitely we hear about the news between Palestine and Israel, between other countries that are having issues with economies and government corruption and things like that.
Sure. Well, I usually stay away from issues of Israel and Palestine simply because I do a lot of work with the Israeli government and for Israel. And my views on this are very specific, and I'm happy to touch upon them briefly, and then I'll talk about some other places of great conflict and corruption. But the Israel-Palestinian conflict, of course, as a Jew and as a Zionist, upsets me deeply. I grieve terribly for the Palestinian people who I feel are trapped in an untenable situation, given the fact that they are ruled by a terrorist regime in the Gaza Strip. Clearly, the Palestinian territories are very much so divided. We have one side that's really looking towards the future and one side that's kind of trapped in an endless spiral of violence due to the basic corruption and political and extreme religious views that are held by the Hamas in that part of the territories. And I do believe in the bottom of my heart that there can be peace that can be made once the Palestinian people choose to forego a terrorist government and join their brothers and sisters on the other side of the territories in hoping for a two-state solution. Of course, corruption and violence is a problem everywhere in today's world, and many people feel as if the world is spiraling out of control, and certainly it might appear that way. I think we have to remember our past and remember the great violence and crises that we confronted in bygone eras, going all the way back to the Roman Empire to today. So perhaps the world does seem very chaotic, but I think it's mostly a result of our connectivity to people and our intense desire as a humanity to live differently than we have in our past. And what I mean by that is to live in peace, to live in this globalized world where we can benefit so much from online communities, from rapid travel, from our ability to learn from successful models of capitalism, and even socialist capitalism that we see developing around the world, especially in the emerging economies in Latin America and Southeast Asia. I think the biggest problem that we confront today, and the problem that we should be most concerned about, of course, is terrorism, which has been the focus of my work for a long time. And the reason why terrorism is true, at least in its current form, because this is truly the fourth wave of terrorism that we've seen in the world since the French reign of terror. The problem with this type of terrorism that we're confronting today is that it's really seized a hold among young people. And unlike in terrorism in times past, where it was somewhat more contained or somewhat more localized, this has truly become a global phenomenon. This form of terrorism is a global phenomenon, and we confront a lot of issues, especially here in America and in Europe, where so many of our youth, and we see this in the paper every day, so many of our youth getting up and joining forces for what we call, jihadi vacations or jihadi weekends. The Austrian girls that we've been seeing a lot on the news are a great example of this. 2 girls that got wrapped up in an online community were convinced to go overseas and fight on behalf of ISIS, and now are desperate to come home. I think the most important thing that we can do is educate our children and our young people that violence is never the answer. It's never been a good answer for anything. And I think we need to, as Malala Yousafzai says to us, we need to educate our people. Books and papers and pens and pencils and teachers are always a much better solution than war and bombs. And with great education, especially among women, when we see women being educated, societies are uplifted. When we see women working, we see societies uplifted. When women have equal rights, we wind up with better economies, we wind up with better states, and we wind up with better forms of governance. This is historically proven. The record shows it as such, and it's an interesting point, given that you're working on a female radio show. Women truly are our future, and that's why looking forward to 2016, it would be exciting to see Hillary Clinton run again, because the Pakistanis have done it, the Australians have done it, the Brits have done it, Latin American countries have done it, and that is have a female representative as your head of state. And given that we are the hegemon, we are the global leader, and we will remain as such in the coming, decades for certain. It is time that we kind of break that last feeling, because women do rule differently than men. It has nothing to do with their emotionality. It just has to do with their general perceptions and understandings in life. And I think it would be interesting to have a female president and see how she would really help us change the dynamic in the world for women and girls.
Excellent. Yes, we've talked to many guests who have also advocated for a female president, and we actually got the chance to interview some women who are involved with the Clinton Global Initiative University, and to hear their point of view and also what they're trying to pursue, just like what you're trying to pursue, to achieve that equality. And now that it is time for change and to have a female head of state, all connects, so it's very important. So do you believe, like you said earlier, that education for both men and women, different societies all over the world, that is the best tool to use to try to win this war on terrorism?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I study war. I study terrorism. This is my passion. So, of course, we're not going to win this war with books alone. It will require warfare tactics. It will require bombs and guns and killing the bad guys, because a lot of these bad guys are not going to turn, and we see this all the time when we release these fellows from Guantanamo Bay, and I think the number was up to 15 or 12 or 15% of the people that have been detained in Guantanamo Bay have gone back to terrorism. But at the end of the day, yes, we can prevent people from falling into the trap, men and women both, the trap of extremism and radicalism when they're well educated. Now, of course, the contrary to that is when you do study the current form of terrorism that's existing in the world, we do find that the best terrorists tend to be the best educated ones. And why is this? Because if you are going to execute a really big mission, you're not going to pick the dumbest guy in the room to do it for you. You're going to pick the best educated. So education is a double-edged sword. All the 9/11 hijackers, I believe, maybe save one or two, all had master's degrees, many in engineering. So it is easy. It is as easy for an incredibly intelligent person to fall into this trap as it is not. But what education can do is begin to prevent the youth from doing that. And once we change the dynamics of a generation, then we can really begin to put an end to this current wave of violence that we see exploding all over the Middle East and Southeast Asia, and even right here at home.
Okay, great. So the best education is the correct form of education, and trying to find that right combination of education that will create a better change. And we will continue this conversation after we take our first break. Remember, we do want to hear from our listeners. Go to facebook.com/womeninvesting or on Twitter, #womeninvest and #girlsinvest. Stay tuned.
Join Kid Chef Eliana for Cool Kids Cook. Eliana is one of the youngest published cookbook authors and will show you that there are all kinds of goodness in food, beyond the chicken nuggets and fries. On our show, we'll discover cuisine from around the world, learn some great cooking techniques, speak with some of the world's top chefs, and share recipes. Kid Chef Eliana is here for you on Cool Kids Cook every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Kids channel. Bon appetit!
We don't care how you got here. We're just glad you showed up. You're listening to Voice America Kids.
Join us every week for the Paper Hope Street Team. None of our topics are off the table. This is a program that you can listen to and discuss with your family. From the pages of the Paper Hope blog to the internet radio airwaves, we'll talk about the topics you want to talk about, such as friendship and relationships, or some more controversial issues about sex, drugs, and underage drinking. Join the Paper Hope Street Team live every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time on the Voice America Kids channel. Let's talk soon.
You're listening to Voice America Kids. Real kids, real talk
You are
radio.
listening to Women Investing in Women and Girls. Be sure to join in the discussion by tweeting us at #WomenInvest or on Facebook at Women Investing in Women. We want to hear what you have to say. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to Women Investing in Women and Girls. I'm your host, Michelle Jaffee, and we are joined by Bhardwaj of Women Investing in Women, and our guest today is Melissa Jane Kronfeld. And before we went to our break, we talked a little about education, about some of the international relations and global affairs that are impacting our world right now. And we are going to just shift the discussion a little bit, Melissa, to what you founded, Party for a Purpose. So do you mind explaining a little bit about what that is and your role in it?
Sure. So Party for a Purpose emerged about 2 years ago from a series of salons that I did in my home. And being a student of history, one of the things that I always loved reading about was at the turn of the last century and into the 1900s. Women were kind of the intellectual driving force in Europe, especially in Jewish communities. And in Russia and Germany, women would often host these intellectual salons. And why was it the women? Well, one, because women are awesome and they want to advance goodness all around the world. But the bigger reason was a woman holding a party in her home was not an uncommon thing at the time. So they were able to kind of fly under the radar of the government, and women would often invite intellectuals in their community to their home to speak to people about the kind of social things that we would consider socially disruptive today, and at the time could have landed you in prison, and of course in some places in the world still can. But the concept was to convene people that I cared about and people that I thought should learn about something important, and really intelligent people to come and meet and hear about things that other people were doing. And it started off very small. It was about 10, 20 people, and now we've had about 100 per party. And essentially, we've evolved into this network called Party for a Purpose. And Party for a Purpose is about 6,000 members around the world, and we host an event about once a month at my home, and I choose someone amazing to come speak. We recently spoke with Gina Rosero, who's the first transgender supermodel. Next week we'll be hosting the Deputy Consul General of Israel. We've had the opportunity to host a Syrian refugee that escaped the crisis that's going on there. And it's really been a true blessing. Had the opportunity not only to have these people in my home, but to hear the impact that it has on the lives of those that come to these events. I like to say Party for a Purpose works if you let it work. And I know that many friendships have been made, and a lot of these people that have come to my home and had the opportunity to present have benefited by either creating new friendships with people that can help them in the capacity of raising awareness and raising money. And on the other hand, Party for a Purpose is my own personal consultancy, so I work advising charities, family foundation offices, and people in the philanthropic and not-for-profit space on how to create an impact. We like to say that we want to create epic experiences around social good. And being in this space, one of the things that I learned early on was the biggest barrier to entry to doing social good was people didn't realize how easy it is. People thought maybe it was weird if they called up their favorite charity and asked if they could donate their time or donate, services that they are able to provide. And what I want people to know is that it's really that easy. We need to unpack the concept of philanthropy. You don't have to have $1 million to be a philanthropist. Mm-hmm. Let's redefine philanthropy to mean somebody that donates their time, someone that donates their energy to a cause. Let's lower the barrier for social good and provide kind of unique opportunities to engage one-on-one with amazing individuals in the social good space and see where it takes you.
Awesome. And when you mention social good, what does that truly mean? What types of events and causes are you supporting in your home through these parties?
So I focus, there's no specific focus, actually. I engage charities on numerous different levels. So I work in the anti-slavery community. I work with veterans' rights. I work for LGBTQ rights. I work for the rights of the state of Israel and the Jewish people all around the world. I've worked on anti-Semitism. Healthcare is a big thing for me. Women and children are very important to me. I work with a lot of charities that benefit women and children. And then, of course, one that's nearest and dearest to my heart, Holocaust survivors. There are 68,000 survivors living here just in New York, and close to 30,000 of them live in poverty. And that's just unjustifiable to me. They've suffered enough. They've survived the worst atrocities that we've ever seen in the modern era. And the fact that these individuals are choosing between their rent, their food, or their pills because they don't have the capacity to pay for all three each month is just not the kind of world that I want to live in. And so I work with the founder of the Nexus Youth Summit, Rachel Cohen-Jarrow, who started this organization, and I chair the New York committee. And essentially our goal is to raise funds and raise money for services to provide for these. So last year we worked with a dentist who offered to give in services what we were able to raise. So we had an art auction. We raised about $100,000. So the dentist offered another $100,000 in services, totaling $200,000 in dental services for survivors, because, as I'm sure you're probably aware, dentistry is an often overlooked form of medicine in terms of poverty. But if you have terrible oral problems, you are unable to eat, and it can cause significant health issues. To this day, as far as I know, the dentist was so moved by the people that he met and the way in which his services were so needed by the community that he continues to help survivors today, despite the fact that the money has run out.
Awesome. And we are going to touch a little bit about those survivors as well and your role in helping those survivors have basic services covered. And I'd now like to go to other causes that you support, and one of them is the Save a Child's Heart. And you actually had the Vice Prime Minister of Israel, Silvan Shalom, speak at one of your parties. So if you mind speaking a little bit about that and what supporting that cause means to you.
Sure. So, to be honest, I left my role at Save a Child's Heart recently, just in September, because I wanted to focus the full amount of my efforts on the abolition community, which is where I'm doing my most work now. But I did spend 4 years working with Save a Child's Heart, and that is an Israeli medical NGO located in Holon, right outside Tel Aviv, and they provide a life-saving heart surgery for children with congenital rheumatic heart conditions. Very specific surgery for a very specific disease. Congenital rheumatic heart condition is easily curable in the first world. If you are born with it, they treat it either while you're in the womb or at birth. But in the developing world and in the third world, it's easily contracted through basic flus and colds, and if a flu or cold gone untreated, you can wind up with a congenital rheumatic heart condition, and it's terminal by 18. So what we do is we fly children from all over the world to Israel, where we give them the surgery. It costs $10,000 to provide the surgery for each child. That includes their pre-care, their post-care, and their round-trip airfare with a parent if feasible. And that's really the cheapest you can get this type of surgery anywhere in the world. And it's so cheap because the Israeli government underwrites the cost of the doctors and the staff and the hospital for us. And this is kind of one of those untold stories about Israel. We often say Israel is really bad at doing its own PR, and if people only knew how much the Israeli people did for others around the world, maybe it would change the perspective that we see of so many other nations towards the Israeli state. But Silvan Shalom is a friend of mine. I had the great fortune of meeting him when I was living in Israel, and I became friends with him, and in that capacity, he was serving as the health minister. I think he serves as the health minister now to Israel, and so he's a big supporter of it. As are the vast majority of Israeli politicians. It's really one of those feel-good stories. You can't go wrong. Whenever anything kind of explodes in Israel, we often see a huge amount of press around Save a Child's Heart, because it's just one of those things that you can't say no to. And one of the more amazing stories was during the conflict with Syria, that's still ongoing, of course. The refugee whom I hosted in my home identified some children that had this condition and helped with the government of Turkey, helped get these kids out of Syria and to Israel. Of course, the children were not told they were in Israel because they did have to go home afterwards. They were told they were in Turkey, and they received the surgery from the Israeli doctors and were saved and will live a long, productive, and happy life, unknown to them that it was on behalf of the Israeli people who saved them.
It's incredible stuff, and it really speaks to what it means to be philanthropic. And like you mentioned in the first part of the discussion, it's more than just money. It's helping those that are in need. And we're going to go ahead and talk more about this after our break. But it really, truly is incredible stuff. So let us know what you think about this issue and on our social media on Facebook and Twitter, those both. And we are going to get back to our discussion. Once again, I'm your host, Michelle Jaffee, and you are listening to Women Investing in Women and Girls.
Are you ready to explore the amazing world under the sea? Your host is a certified scuba diver, explorer. He likes to cook, and most of all, he's just a kid like you. You'll find out a lot more lies under the sea than what you've seen on TV, in movies, and even in aquatic parks. You'll learn about all kinds of fish, as well as other sea creatures. We'll take you to some exotic destinations and so much more. There's a whole big world under sea just waiting to be discovered. Tune in to Under the Sea, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on Voice America Kids.
Sometimes we may sound strange, but remember, we're just kids with opinions. You're listening to Voice America Kids.
There's so much going on in the tech field. The tech team is here to sort it all out so that you know exactly what you need to get and what you should avoid. In this age of cell phones and text messaging and new discoveries every single day, you need to be informed. We'll bring you previews of new products, technology news, and help you make the right decision when you are out there buying that new MP3 player, cell phone, or mobile device. Don't do a thing until you've tuned in to the Tech Team, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Voice America Kids.
Looking for an on-air community where teens talk and the world listens? Tune in to Express Yourself, an entertaining adolescent fusion radio program where passion and possibility populate the airwaves. Our vivacious teen hosts and star-studded field reporters from around the country offer stimulating segments and invigorating viewpoints connecting with the world campus of young people. We'll talk with cool celebrities, exhilarating experts, and tenacious teens with experience. Tuesdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Voice America Kids. Express yourself. What do you want to do? Are you interested in the performing arts? If so, make sure you tune in to the Angel and Harmony Show. Angel and Harmony have experience singing, acting, and performing in general, and want to help you live out your dreams of the future. Whether you are interested in acting, modeling, dancing, or singing, this is the show for you. We'll even give you the scoop on being behind the scenes if you're a little shy. The Angel and Harmony Show is heard live every Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Kids channel.
We don't care how you got here. We're just glad you showed up. You're listening to Voice America Kids.
What's cooking? Join Kid Chef Eliana for Cool Kids Cook. Eliana is one of the youngest published cookbook authors and will show you that there are all kinds of goodness in food, beyond the chicken nuggets and fries. On our show, we'll discover cuisine from around the world, learn some great cooking techniques, speak with some of the world's top chefs, and share recipes. Kid Chef Eliana is here for you on Cool Kids Cook every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Kids channel. Bon appetit!
Keep it right here. You're listening to Voice America Kids.
You are listening to Women Investing in Women and Girls. Be sure to join in the discussion by tweeting us at #WomenInvest or on Facebook at Women Investing in Women. We want to hear what you have to say. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to Women Investing in Women and Girls. I'm your host, Michelle Jaffee, and we are joined by Bhardwaj of Women Investing in Women, as well as our guest, Melissa Jane Kronfeld. And before we went to our break, we talked about Party for a Purpose and how philanthropy can take many forms other than just money, helping other people that are in need as well. And to go along with that idea, Melissa, let's talk about the Nexus Global Youth Summit and what that is.
Sure. So the Nexus Global Youth Summit started about 4 years ago. It is the brainchild of Rachel Cohen-Jarrell and Jonah Whitcamper. And truly, it is the most incredible and amazing organization on the planet. I am a strong believer, supporter, advocate, and employee, well, volunteers, but staff member at Nexus. And so Nexus is a global network of young wealth holders and social disruptors and innovators and activists, all of whom are millennials, and all who have committed themselves to making the world a better place by advocating for social good. Network Nexus is about 2,500 members in 70 different countries with a combined net worth of about $300 billion. And the organization is a safe space, a non-solicitation zone where young wealth holders can engage one another in conversations that not all their peers are able to have with them. They come from a unique group of people. Now, just because they are wealth holders doesn't mean that they are any different than anyone else. They just have the capacity at times to do more than others can. And these are a group of people that are fully committed to using that specific capacity, which often comes in the form of wealth and reach, to change the world for the better. I joined the organization about 2 years ago and took on the role as the chairperson of New York City, which I now share with Divya Kapse, who's another amazing member. And the reason why I'm sharing it with Divya now is because about a year ago, Nexus decided to do an experiment, something that we had never done before, and that was to create a working group. So oftentimes people say, well, what does Nexus do? You have a summit, you hang out, you throw great events, you meet, you talk, but what have you done? And of course, some amazing organizations have emerged from Nexus, and amazing companies have emerged from Nexus. One of them is the Public Foundation, which was co-founded by Sergio Fernandez de Cordova and Rachel Cohen-Jarrell, which provides unique marketing and advertising opportunities for not-for-profits that wouldn't be able to afford it. But my role in taking over the working group was to see if we could marshal the resources of the Nexus community towards making a tangible impact and ending slavery. One of the things that's most interesting about slavery today is how few people know about it. Every single day of my life, I have a conversation with somebody about slavery who just simply does not know and cannot comprehend that there are still slaves in the world. According to Kevin Bales' estimates, there are 31 million people living in bondage, and that might in and of itself be lower, because this is a black economy. This is an underground economy. We can't just ask everyone who's a slave to raise their hands in the world and give them a head count. Furthermore, slavery is a $150 billion a year industry, and the top 20 countries are spending approximately $120 million a year fighting it. That's like using a eyedropper to put out a raging inferno. It's not going to work that way. So we kind of started off just as we wanted to create a community within Nexus where people could engage in this topic. What we were not prepared for was how committed the Nexus membership would be to this fight, and it was truly astounding. So we started off with a dinner in New York in January. About 50 people attended, and we started a Facebook page. We started having conversations, and somebody suggested that we should educate ourselves, because a couple of us in this space were not very familiar with slavery. And so we reached out to the network, and we said, hey, give us some introductions to some people you know working in abolition. And the names just flooded in. So we started booking people every Tuesday to get on the phone with us and talk to us for an hour about their work, either through a conference call or webinar. And we did that leading up to the summit in July. And then in July, for the first time ever, Nexus allowed a single issue to have numerous tracks, numerous breakout sessions. And in total, I believe we had 4 breakout sessions over the course of the summit. And every single session was packed. Every single session, everyone wanted to learn more, get involved, and get engaged. And following Summit, we wound up creating a structure. We appointed leaders who are working on issue-specific task force within the slavery movement, anti-slavery movement, and then those that are working on regional issues. We published a report, an amazing report, where we got 30 leaders in the space to tell us one thing that you should know and one thing that you can do to end slavery, which is downloadable from the Nexus website, nexusyouthsummit.org. And the upcoming summit that we're going to be doing in D.C., the inaugural USA Summit, which will be December 1 through 3, we're going to be taking it to the next level, and we've compiled a list of 100 deeds that you can do to be an abolitionist, 100 simple things. And the one that I would recommend to your listeners is that you should, one of the things that you can do is that you can join our weekly calls, and our weekly calls, you can sign up to be part of our listserv by going to tinyurl.com/HTMS sign up, which is Human Trafficking and Modern Slavery sign up. And you can be a part of our weekly calls. If you can't join our calls, we send out detailed call notes the following day with everything that the speaker said, and we're hoping to compile that into an amazing PDF soon enough. Right now, we are booked solid through to July for the next summit with speakers every Tuesday. Some of the most amazing people in the world doing some of the most really incredible work. And so many amazing things have happened from the working group, and I think the most interesting one is I was approached by another Nexus member to write a book. And the book is essentially compiling the stories of all the amazing speakers and leaders in this space to take a snapshot of the modern movement. Rather than writing in the movement, we wanted to do a book on the movement, and we wanted to draw upon historical parallels with former abolitionist movements from the Dutch slave trade up into the modern century through to the Holocaust, which was also a terrible atrocity in the form of slavery. And we're working on an amazing book. We have about 50 contributors from thought leaders, innovators, celebrities, you name it, everyone signed on, because it's really a testament to how important this issue is. Slavery is the human rights fight of our generation. There is no man, woman, or child. There is no city. There is no state. There is no town that is immune from this. I don't know where you ladies are, but I'm here in Manhattan, in Midtown Manhattan, and I promise you that we could walk 5 blocks in any direction. I guarantee you I can find somebody that is enslaved. And we cannot permit this to happen. Slavery drains the economy. Slavery is a national security threat in terms of crossing borders. And we really, really need to stand up as a community, and we have decided in Nexus to be the generation that ends slavery once and for all.
When is this book planning to come out, Melissa?
Well, we're working on the publishing deal now. Our dream would be to have it out in time for the next summit. Of course, these things always take longer than expected. I know I'm writing a dissertation, so I can tell you these things always take longer. But we do have 4 amazing chapters already submitted. Like I said, we've got 50 contributors signed on. So right now it's a matter of finishing the book deal and then starting to reach out to everyone that signed on to explore what their chapter is going to be about. But this is absolutely happening, and we're thrilled and excited, and we hope that more amazing opportunities come from this. We're thinking about documentaries, we're thinking about online television shows, we're thinking about an annual conference, we're thinking about innovation prizes, because really there's no end to how we can approach slavery, or how we can defeat slavery, and you know, it's really just a matter of where your imagination can take you. If we can believe that the world can be slave-free, then we can start agitating for that in any capacity that we deem appropriate.
And what specific action steps would you advise for our young audience?
Sure.
30
so
seconds.
The very first thing I tell people, you have to be educated. You got to know your facts. The most important thing, I think, as I told you just a few minutes ago, was that the vast majority of people do not know that slavery still exists. And it exists today in a form that many researchers believe is just about as worse than it's ever been in terms of population statistics. So the first thing you need to do is you gotta get educated. The second thing you have to do, you have to tell people that slavery exists. The more people who know, the more people will be outraged, and the more outrage that we have, the more movement that we can. When we do post, and it should be posted in the next few weeks, we will be posting the list of 100 things that you can do on the Nexus website, nexuspeacesummit.org. But definitely some of the most important steps, you know, like anti-trafficking, anti-slavery organizations on Facebook and Twitter. Follow them. Why? Because one way you're showing support, but 2, you're going to learn. All these organizations are constantly producing content, and you're going to learn a lot. You need to demand that your products that you eat, wear, buy, and use are slave-free. I promise you, there are very few products on this earth, practically none, that are truly slave-free. And so you should go into your favorite coffee shop and ask them if they use fair trade coffee. You know, go into your favorite designer and say, who picks your cotton? Do you know where it comes from? Furthermore, do you know what kind of factories are you using? Capitalism is the key to ending slavery, and I think that's the biggest thing that we're learning in this new movement. There's this whole wave of people that want to be socially conscious buyers, right? We like our organic stuff. We like knowing that our stuff is made in America. Whatever it is that you like, we are socially conscious buyers today. We've made that transition from the kind of, stark capitalism of the 80s and 90s, and now we're transitioning into a world where we may be willing to pay an extra dollar for a T-shirt if we know that no one was enslaved in that shirt.
Great. Awesome. We're going to continue this. We're going to get one more break. Once again, I'm your host, Michelle Jaffee, and you're listening to Women Investing, Women and Girls.
What about the world concerns you? Is it future success? Is it world issues? Are you just looking to change the world in general? Tune in to What Up, World! It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what you look like. Everyone is entitled to the same chance for success. Follow your dreams, move forward, make a difference. Tune in to What Up, World! Every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Kids channel.
We don't care how you got here. We're just glad you showed up. You're listening to Voice America Kids.
You're listening to Voice America Kids. Real kids, real talk
You are
radio.
listening to Women Investing in Women and Girls. Be sure to join in the discussion by tweeting us at #WomenInvest or on Facebook at Women Investing in Women. We want to hear what you have to say. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to Women Investing in Women and Girls. I'm your host, Michelle Jaffee, and we are once again with Bhardwaj of Women Investing in Women and Melissa Jane Kronfeld. And Melissa, before we went to the break, you were offering some advice to our listeners on how they can combat this presence of trafficking and slavery in the world right now. So would you like to continue that?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Some of the more important things, don't engage in the commercial sex industry. This is a problem. The commercial sex industry, although the research is still emerging on this, certainly has changed the way that we view sex in this country and around the world. And it's been problematic. The vast majority of pornography has some degree of violence against women. And when we accept that and when we watch that and we see that and we don't turn it off, that's problematic because that seeps into our mind and becomes a part of our social fabric. So that's another big one. One thing I would definitely recommend to your listeners is to go on to Amazon and Google, modern slavery, trafficking. Read every book that you can. Go online and Google slavery and trafficking documentaries. There are countless amazing documentaries out there that can really educate you on this topic. But most importantly, it's a matter of taking action in terms of the products that you buy and the way in which you talk about this issue. I would recommend to have a true impact on your listeners that everyone go visit Justin Dillon's website, which is called slaveryfootprint.org. And kind of like the carbon footprint website that came out when climate change was a super hot issue a while back, slaveryfootprint.org analyzes your spending habits and will tell you how much you contribute to modern slavery every day. If you go to this website and you take this little test, and this doesn't make you realize how much you are a contributor to the modern modern slavery, well, then nothing will. So that would be something that I would absolutely recommend everyone going and doing, and that's slaveryfootprint.org.
Okay, yeah, that's very, very eye-opening, and I'm sure that we'd all be pretty surprised about how much we're contributing as well. And to go along with that point, why do you think it's so important that young people especially are participating in these discussions?
Well, because we are the future, right? And I'm sure I'm a bit older than you ladies, but it's kind of like when we were speaking in the beginning about ending radicalization, right? We could end radicalization if we could educate people in a different capacity and move them away from believing that that's their only choice. Well, we are humans. We have free will, and we can choose to live in a free world if we want to. And I believe that if the upcoming generation and my generation, the millennial generation and the ones right below us, truly stand up and say they're just not going to stand for a slave-free world, that we won't live in one. Slavery has been abolished 3 other times in history. And although slavery has always existed, we're never going to have 0 slaves in the world. There's always going to be somebody that's in some sort of debt bondage or domestic servitude or sex slavery. But if we stand up and we say as a community of people, we are not going to stand by and allow this to happen to other people, then it will and can change. I'm a strong believer in that effect. And sometimes it just takes enough people to say something for something to be different. We saw this in the civil rights fight in America in the 60s, right? We saw communities of people, Jews, Caucasians, Hispanics, everyone came together and rallied around the African American community and said that we are not going to stand idly by while people who are just like us are not receiving the same rights. We can even go further back, and we can see this in the women's movement. I mean, many people forget it was about 100 years ago that women were not permitted to vote in this country. And we have suffragettes like that went on hunger strikes, that got arrested, that went and voted anyway. And they said, we are not going to tolerate this anymore. And when people stand up and people take action, there will be change. There's a quote, it's something along the lines of, without heroes, we don't know how far we can go in life. Mm-hmm. And I think the actions of a few inspiring the many is truly the way to go. So I would say, dear listeners, be one of those few and inspire the many.
I love it. And we have just a little bit of time left, but I'd like to know from you, especially because these issues affect all of us, whether you live in America or abroad. So what do you think it means to be a global citizen and being globally aware?
That's a great question. I think to be a global citizen in today's day and age means an understanding of humanity. And I spoke a little bit about this in the beginning. We were very stovepiped in our past due to, we didn't have the internet and we didn't have rapid travel. And now we live in a world where it is easy to see that the suffering of one is the suffering of all. And there's an ancient Jewish belief that to save one life is to save all lives. Save humanity, to save the world. And I think to be a global citizen means that we don't look at color, we don't look at race, we don't look at ethnicity, we don't look at religion, that we look at each other as people and we see the endless potential that we can have when we innovate and work together. There's an organization called the Echoing Green Fellows, I believe it's called. And one of the most remarkable things when I met some of these kids in the past year was how many of these fellows who are chosen for their innovative things that they are doing, how many of these fellows were working in partnerships that never would have been feasible 20 years ago. So I met with these 2 kids, and one was from a small town in India, and one was from a small town in Israel. And the 2 had the opportunity to meet. And now they had created this kind of plastic solar panel that could be easily put together like a jigsaw puzzle to create a massive solar panel anywhere in the world. And this both emerged from the need for solar power in their 2 communities. But here's 2 people that were as diverse as the day is dawn, and they are now running this amazing solar company together. And I think that's the kind of the concept behind the global citizen, is that my problems here are like your problems there, my challenges here are your challenges there, but also the opportunities to innovate and change and advocate and bring good into the world are just as feasible here as they are everywhere else. And I think that's why we see this big movement of people all the time. You see a lot of people in the West, like the doctors that are doing a lot of work in Ebola now, going over and saying, listen, we have the capacity here in America to prevent these diseases and to come up with cures. Let's go over and do that, because the suffering of the Africans is the suffering of the Americans. It's the suffering of the West, suffering of the South, however which way you want to look at it. And I'm a strong believer that humanity truly is moving towards a much better place. I know it doesn't seem that way, and I know it's tough to imagine at times. But perhaps this is a critical juncture in our history. Perhaps this is, the real heavy storm before the calm. And I like to think that if we do come together in these global ways and we see ourselves as citizens of the world rather than citizens of specific countries, that the change that we bring at home is change that we can bring to other people.
Definitely, yeah, I agree. I think that the lines that separate those countries now, I think that they're slowly starting to fade. And even with just women investing in women, we're not focusing our efforts just on America. On the contrary, we're focusing efforts on, I think we say everywhere but Antarctica, and maybe eventually Antarctica. So just expanding your mission beyond borders and just realizing that, like you said, the issues of one person is the issue of everybody. And if you let a country go unnoticed, you let a problem go unnoticed, then that's a failure on everybody's part. So I definitely wholeheartedly agree with that. And we definitely appreciate you being on our show today. I think you shared some very wise thoughts and wisdom as well. So, and we definitely love having you on our show once again. So,
it was a great honor and pleasure to speak with you today. It was a lot of fun, given that I'm not in the classroom so much anymore, to have the opportunity to engage and answer these really awesome and amazing questions. And you ladies are doing really incredible work. So keep doing it. Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't ever stop.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners for listening as well. You've been listening to Women Investing in Women and Girls. The show is produced by Kidstar Radio for the Voice America Kids Network. Kidstar Radio, we empower kids.
Thank you for joining us today. Your hosts will be back next Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time, for another edition of Women Investing in Women and Girls on the Voice America Kids channel. We'll talk then.
My name is Lindsay Marie from Bookworm. Now from the Kidstar Album of the Month, here is the Whiz Pops and their song, Blue Whale. That was the Whiz Pops from the Kidstar album of the month.